So hello everyone. So let's start with the first topic of the oral pathology is odontogenics, which is very important. Okay. Now what do we mean by odontogenic? Odontogenic means something which is derived from the tooth-like structure. Okay. So cyst which is derived from tooth-like structure, it is called as odontogenic cyst. Okay. So let's have a look on first what is cyst. Okay. Cyst. It is derived from cystis, which is derived from cystis. Cystis, which basically means a sac or bladder like. A sac or bladder like. Now, coming to the definition, which is very important, given in your Schaeffer's, and it was given by Kramer. Okay, so Kramer has defined cyst as a pathological cavity which contains either fluid, semi-fluid, or gases, but not pus, Now if there is a presence of pus, then it is called as abscess. If there is a presence of pus, then it is called as abscess. Okay, so this is the definition of cyst. Now what happens? This cyst which is present, it is frequently lined by epithelium, but not always. So, based on whether there is a presence of epithelial lining present or not, we have two types of cyst. That is based on presence of epithelial lining or absent. Okay. So, we have true cyst. We will see this with the help of diagram also. Okay. So, true cyst. That means the epithelial lining here is present. Epithelial lining is present. While pseudocyst, the epithelial lining is absent. Okay. Now, this which we are talking about, it can occur anywhere in the body, but cyst which arises from the odontogenic apparatus, that means the structures which are involved in the development of the tooth are called as odontogenic cyst. Now, any other cyst apart from the odontogenic cyst, it will be called as non-odontogenic cyst. So, we are focused here on odontogenic cyst. Okay. So, coming to the difference between true cyst and pseudocyst. Okay. So, here, see, this is a lumen. Lumen. Then we have epithelial lining, which is surrounded by connective tissue capsule. So, we have three parts of a cyst: lumen, epithelial lining, and then which is surrounded by a connective tissue. This is epithelial lining. This is connective tissue. Okay. Now, when we talk about pseudocyst, see, there is a lumen, but there is no epithelial lining. There is just the connective tissue. Lumen, and then we have connective tissue. Okay. So, this we have spoken about two types of cyst. Okay. Now, the next question is, what is the source of this epithelial lining? Okay, so we will study this in a form of story so that it will be easier for you to recall all these terminologies for a longer period. Okay, so what is the source of the epithelium? Can anyone tell me? Source of epithelium? Obviously, the structures which are involved in the development of the tooth. Structures which are associated with the development of tooth. Okay, so can anyone tell me what are the structures associated with the development of the tooth? You would have done this in DADH. Okay, what are the structures? Like your reduced enamel epithelium, cell of Sere, cell rest of Sere, and cell rest of molasses. Cell rest of molasses. Okay. So these are dental lamina remnants. Okay. Dental lamina remnant, that is cell rest of Sere and cell rest of molasses. This is HERS. So coming to the based on the source of the epithelium. So we have our first classification of the odontogenic based on tissue of origin or the source of epithelium. So first classification, very important. It is a very important MCQ question. First classification based on source of epithelium. Okay, direct question have been asked on this. Okay, so cysts derived from reduced enamel epithelium. Reduced enamel epithelium, we have dentigerous cyst, dentigerous cyst, and eruption cyst. Okay, then we have dental lamina remnants, which is also called as cell rest of Sere. Cell rest of Sere. Then here we have OKC. So majority of the cysts belong to this category. Okay, OKC, gingival cyst, lateral periodontal cyst, glandular odontogenic cyst, and we have COC, that is calcifying odontogenic cyst. And then the third category is HERS, which is cell rest of molasses. So in this category, generally we have inflammatory cyst. Okay, so what are the inflammatory cysts? That is the radicular cyst and the residual cyst. Cell rest of molasses. Okay, so we have radicular and residual. Okay, so this classification is very important. Now the second classification is very easy, which is given, which is updated in 2017 classification by WHO, which is based on the etiology. Okay, 2017 classification by WHO, which is based on etiology. Now this classification is very easy. Okay, so they have divided the cyst into two categories. We have inflammatory and developmental. Inflammatory and developmental. Now in inflammatory, we have two cysts, while all other are just a part of it. Okay, so we have radicular cyst, and then we have inflammatory collateral cyst. Inflammatory collateral cyst. Okay, while all other cysts apart from this will fall into the category of developmental. Okay, now parts of this we will see it later. Okay, so we have dentigerous. Okay, dentigerous. OKC, that is orthokeratinized odontogenic cyst. We will see all this one by one. Okay, now the modified form of OKC is orthokeratinized odontogenic cyst, that is OOC. Okay, then we have LPC, that is lateral periodontal cyst. Lateral periodontal cyst. Okay, then we have glandular odontogenic cyst. Glandular odontogenic cyst. COC, that is calcifying odontogenic cyst. COC. Then we have eruption cyst. Eruption cyst. Then we have botryoid odontogenic cyst. Botryoid odontogenic cyst. Gingival cyst of newborn and gingival cyst of adult. Cyst of newborn and adult. Okay. So, till calcifying odontogenic cyst, it is intraosseous. That means presence within the bone, while these are extraosseous. Extraosseous. That means present away from the bone. These are present within the bone and away from the bone. Okay. So very easy. Inflammatory cyst and developmental. Inflammatory, radicular and inflammatory collateral cyst. Now, radicular cyst का एक part है residual cyst that we will see. Residual. Okay. Now, inflammatory collateral cyst is of two types. Okay. We have paradental cyst and buccal bifurcation cyst. Paradental and buccal bifurcation cyst. Okay, so this is basically the very important part of odontogenic cyst, and all the questions will be from this classification. Okay, and we will see all the cysts one by one. Now coming to the one-liners which is generally asked in your exam. Okay, now most common cyst, if they will ask you most common cyst in the oral cavity, most common cyst in oral cavity. Okay? Then the answer here is radicular cyst. That is 60 to 65% of the time it is radicular cyst. Okay? So the radicular cyst, it is a which type of cyst? It is an inflammatory cyst. Okay? So inflammatory cyst and which belongs to the category of radicular cyst. Okay? Now, similar question can be asked in many different ways. Okay, most common odontogenic cyst of the oral cavity. Most common odontogenic cyst of oral cavity. Again, it is a radicular cyst. If they will ask you which is the most common inflammatory cyst, most common inflammatory cyst, then again it will be radicular cyst. Now, most common developmental odontogenic cyst, then it is dentigerous cyst. So, in developmental, it is dentigerous. That is why we have written it on the top. Okay. So, most common developmental odontogenic cyst, it is dentigerous. Dentigerous. Now, most common developmental non-odontogenic cyst. Most common developmental non-odontogenic cyst, it is a nasopalatine. So these are very important one-liners, okay? Nasopalatine cyst, or it is also called as, just remember it as MAMC, okay? MAMC, what is MAMC? It is median anterior maxillary cyst. Median anterior maxillary cyst. Okay, so coming to our first cyst, which is very important, that is inflammatory cyst. That too, first we will see the radicular cyst. Okay, Radicular. So we know that radicular cyst, it is the most common cyst of the oral cavity and most common inflammatory cyst of the oral cavity. So, which is the most common location? Most common. Now, based on this, the question was asked. Okay, they had made it in a clinical type. So, all these points are very, very, very important. Most commonly seen in the maxilla. Maxilla, very rarely it is seen in the primary dentition. Okay, no need to write. It's just very rarely seen in the primary dentition. Now, can anyone tell me source of the epithelium? Source of epithelium. So, we know that since it is an inflammatory cyst, the source of epithelium is cell rest of Malleus, that is HERS. HERS. Now, what happens? Just remember the pathogenesis. What happens whenever there is any kind of inflammation? Okay, the inflammatory mediators go and irritate the periapical area. Okay, once it irritate the periapical area, what will get stimulated? The HERS gets stimulated, and hence this HERS, it starts proliferating, leading to the formation of radicular cysts. So this basically in very short. Okay, we will see this in detail. Okay, now this source of epithelium, that is HERS, it proliferates in response to inflammation. In response to inflammation. Okay, so now HERS gets stimulated and starts proliferating. So pathogenesis, inflammation, इन्फ्लेमेशन हुआ. ओके, स्टिमुलेशन क्या हुआ? HERS का, फिर प्रोलिफरेशन हुआ HERS का. ठीक है, so this is basically your pathogenesis. Okay, now this radicular cyst, okay, this radicular cyst, it is also called as apical periodontal cyst. Okay, why apical? Because it is present at the apex of the root and periodontium is involved. Okay, so all these second names are very important. Also called as apical periodontal cyst, or since it is present at the end of the root, it is also called as root end cyst. Okay, it is also called as periapical cyst. Periapical cyst. Okay, now very important is this, that this radicular cyst, as I told, this is the inflammatory cyst. Okay, so it is always associated with non-vital tooth. Associated with non-vital tooth. Okay, now why it is a non-vital tooth? Because what happens whenever there is a caries in the tooth. Okay, I'll just draw the diagram. Okay, so it is always associated with non-vital tooth. That means if we will do the EPT or cold test, the tooth will have no response. Now whenever there is any caries here, okay, this is the pulp. Okay, this is the pulp. So caries, what happens? The pulp will get necrosed. Later, the periodontium will get inflamed. As the tooth is necrosed, periodontium is inflamed, and the source of the infection is caries, trauma. Okay, source of the infection is caries or trauma, leading to the large periapical lesion. That is why the tooth here is non-vital. Okay, that it is a non-vital or dead tooth. Okay. Now the patient here mostly, because since the tooth is necrotic, most of the time the patient remains asymptomatic. The patient is asymptomatic and pain generally occurs when it gets secondarily infected or when the lesion becomes very large. Gets secondarily infected. Okay. Non-vital tooth, that means we know that there is no response. Okay. Now, this brings to the phases of cyst formation. So, coming to the phases of cyst formation, which is very important. Okay. Phases of cyst formation. Phases of cyst formation. Now, as we know that first there is stimulation of HERS because of any dental caries or trauma. Now, this is called as phase of initiation of cyst. Initiation of cyst. So, we will see this with the help of diagram. It will be very much clear. Okay. Now, initiation of the cyst. So, first there is stimulation, 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 followed by proliferation. Proliferation of what? Of HERS. Okay, because of any caries or trauma leading to the periapical infection. Now, what happens? Now, whenever there is a lots of initiation, stimulation, and proliferation of HERS, there will lot of HERS will start getting proliferated. Just give me a second. So this we had seen the types of this cyst. Okay, now coming to this. Okay, so as soon as the first is the initiation. Okay, this is initiation. So the HERS, it is getting stimulated and proliferated. See, lots of proliferation of HERS. Now, as soon as they are expanding, the cell they get devoid of nutrition because of no supply of nutrition in center region. The cells in the center region, they undergo ischemia. Okay, central liquefaction necrosis. So there is a one question, what kind of necrosis occurs when there is a cyst formation? So it is central liquefaction necrosis. Okay, undergo ischemia. Ischemia. Okay, that is central liquefaction necrosis. And when there will be formation, when there is a necrosis, so what will happen? There will be formation of lumen. Formation of lumen. Okay, now this, when there will be lumen will be formed, so what will happen? The fluid will come inside this lumen. So the fluid will come inside this lumen. Formation of lumen containing fluid. Now, this is followed by cystification, which is the second phase. Cystification. Now, what happens? The further cells, okay, the further cells will break down. So, when they will break down, so what they will do? They will release protein. Release protein. Okay, now because they will release protein, what will happen? The osmotic pressure release protein leading to increase in osmotic pressure. Now, because of the increased osmotic pressure, the fluid will enter inside. Okay, the fluid will enter inside. See, the fluid will enter inside, and hence this is followed by the phase of cyst growth and enlargement. So, as the cells will break down from the periphery, osmotic pressure will keep on increasing, and to balance out this osmotic pressure, the fluid will enter inside the lumen, and hence the cyst will grow and enlarge. So, the third phase is cyst growth and enlargement. and enlargement. Okay, so I hope this is very clear. Three phases of cyst formation. First is the stimulation and the proliferation of HERS. Second is the cyst cystification, and the third phase is the phase of cyst growth and enlargement. So we will write this. Okay, initiation, cyst cystification, and the third is phase of growth and enlargement. Okay, so they had asked one question in your paper. Okay, based on the sequence wise, what will happen first? Okay, now when it will grow and enlarge, the bone which is surrounding the tooth, the bone which is surrounding, which is the periapical area, they will also get resorbed. Okay, so what interleukin is responsible? Interleukin responsible for bone resorption. Very important, it is interleukin 1 and interleukin 6. Okay. Now coming to the radiograph of the radicular cyst and periapical granuloma, which is very important. Now, as we know that radicular cyst, it is a dead tooth. It is a non-vital tooth. Now, when we talk about periapical granuloma, so there is one chart which is very important, that is sequelae of pulpitis. Okay, sequelae of pulpitis. Just listen this. You will learn this sequelae in your OMR as well. Okay, just for your better understanding. So what happens when the patient complains with the pain? Okay, there is a reversible pulpitis followed by irreversible pulpitis. Then there is a symptomatic apical periodontitis or asymptomatic apical periodontitis, followed by there's a formation of periapical granuloma, then followed by there's a formation of radicular cyst. So this is a sequelae. Okay, now what is the difference between periapical granuloma and the radicular cyst? Okay, so we will see this with the help of the radiograph. Okay, now this is the radiograph. Okay, now both radiographs, it has a well defined radiolucency. So just for your information, radiograph of the radicular cyst, well defined radiolucency. Okay, now when we see both the radiographs, this is small in size, this is large in size. Okay, now based on the radiograph, it is said that, again I'm saying that, it is just said that based on the radiograph, periapical granuloma, it is smaller in size, radicular cyst is bigger in size. Where radicular cyst is bigger in size. But, okay, we cannot differentiate periapical granuloma and radicular cyst based on the radiograph. Okay, because when we talk about radicular cyst, as we said, that it is a true cyst. That means the epithelial lining will be present, while in the periapical granuloma there will be no epithelial lining. So confirmatory diagnosis is always the histopathological examination. Okay, but in your recent Schaefer edition, it has also been said that CBCT, okay, CBCT is good as that it can differentiate periapical granuloma and the cyst. Okay, well defined radiolucency. Now very important, surrounded by radio opaque rim. Surrounded by radio opaque rim. Okay, so periapical. So this is just based on radiograph. This is periapical granuloma. This is periapical cyst. Periapical cyst. Okay. Now periapical cyst, epithelial lining is must. Epithelial lining is must. Okay. Smaller cysts are detected generally accidentally on the radiograph, while larger cysts, it will have larger cysts will have a lot of bony expansions will be there. Okay. So gold standard. Now how to differentiate between gold standard is histopath. Okay, but latest edition CBCT. So if histopathological examination is not given, then you will mark CBCT to differentiate periapical granuloma and the cyst. Okay. But if histopathological examination is given, then first priority to differentiate between these two will the histopathological examination. We never differentiate granuloma and cyst based on radiograph. If they have just given if two radiographs are given, just the radiograph, then it is just said that the granuloma is smaller and cyst is larger in size. Now there is one more terminology, okay, that is periapical abscess. Periapical abscess. Now periapical abscess, again it is associated with non-vital tooth. Non-vital tooth. Okay. So we have three terminologies: periapical abscess, periapical granuloma, and periapical cyst. Or we can say that radicular cyst. Okay. Now all these are associated with non-vital tooth. Okay. Now how will you differentiate them? So periapical granuloma and periapical cyst. Okay. These both are well defined radiolucency, while periapical abscess, it is a ill-defined radiolucency. Okay, so I'll just show you the radiograph of periapical. Now see, this is a ill-defined radiolucency. Now again, the tooth is either restored because of continuous source of inflammation from the restored tooth, or because of any decay, or because of trauma, the tooth has become non-vital. So all these three are associated with non-vital tooth. Okay. Now coming to the histopath of the radicular cyst. Okay, since we are seeing the radicular cyst, coming to the histopathological. Now, as we know that in a cyst, we have seen the three areas. Okay. Yeah, this is the histopath. I'll first write. Okay. So, as we know that in cyst, we have seen the three parts. There is a lumen, there is epithelial lining, there is a connective tissue. Now, epithelium here is non-keratinized, stratified squamous epithelium. Okay. Now, which is surrounded by epithelium, then surrounded by connective tissue. Now, we have a very important, we can say that landmark, which is called as arcading pattern. Okay. So, we have a proliferating reti ridges here. Proliferating reti ridges. Now, these proliferating reti ridges, these are interconnected with each other and forms interconnecting network. Hence, this is called as arcading pattern, which is seen in radicular cyst. Okay, see this. Can you see this? This is long, straight, thin, proliferating reti ridges, and hence these are interconnected. And forming networks, and hence it is called as arcading pattern. Now, the arcading pattern, it is not the pathogenomic for the radicular cyst, and hence it is seen in, I'll write, it is seen in radicular cyst, it is seen in residual cyst, it is seen in inflammatory. So basically you can say that it is seen in, we have seen the classification, inflammatory cyst and the developmental cyst. So it is seen in the inflammatory cyst, arcading pattern. Inflammatory collateral. Collateral cyst. Okay. Now coming to the aspirate. Okay. Aspirate of the radicular cyst. So when we aspirate radicular cyst, we see cholesterol crystals. Now these cholesterol crystals, they impart shimmering effect. Shimmering effect, okay? On slides or when we see on the histopathological section, cholesterol clefts are seen, which is surrounded by multinucleated giant cells. On slides, what do we see? Cholesterol clefts. Cholesterol clefts, okay? Cholesterol cleft, which is surrounded by, multinucleated giant cells. Now this is very important. I'll show you in the diagram as well. Okay? See. See this. This is the shimmering effect. When we aspirate the radicular cister content, the cholesterol crystals, they impart shimmering effect. Okay, shimmering effect. Now, on the histopath, can you see this long cholesterol clip? This is the arcading pattern. Okay, this is the epithelium and this is the connective tissue and this is the cholesterol cleft which is surrounded by multinucleated giant cells. Okay, now coming to the thickness. Okay, thickness. Now this thickness, it ranges from 5 to 50 layers. Epithelium. Okay, so interface between epithelial and the connective tissue, it is not straight, rather these are long, thin, straight, ratty ridges. Okay, now what happens? Now there is a lining epithelium, a very important feature which is seen in the lining epithelium. So these are called as Rushton bodies. Okay, so in lining epithelium, we see Rushton bodies. Rushton bodies. What are these? These are tiny linear, arc-shaped, arc-shaped, hairpin-shaped, pin-shaped calcifications. Okay, these are calcified bodies, calcification seen in the lining epithelium. Hence, these are called as Rushton bodies. Now, these are refractile but not birefringent. Refractile but not birefringent. Okay, these are amorphous and brittle in nature. Okay, these are, as I said, these are curvilinear eosinophilic. Just add few important terminologies: curvilinear, eosinophilic, hairpin shaped or C-shaped. Okay, now Rushton bodies, as we discussed about the arcading pattern, now Rushton bodies is also not exclusively seen in the radicular cyst, are present in. Okay, so first one is the radicular cyst. Radicular cyst. Then we have periapical granuloma. Periapical granuloma. Dentigerous cyst.